When my daughter chose him over me, an old woman's perfect revenge. Have you ever been betrayed by the person you loved most in this world? Have you ever watched your own child turn into someone you don't recognize? Stay with me because what I did next will shock you. And please, if this story touches your heart, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more true stories like mine. Also, drop a comment below and let me know where you're listening from. I love hearing from all of you beautiful souls around the world. My name is Mary and I'm 64 years old. People say that's not ancient, but some days I feel like I've lived 1,000 lifetimes. The morning the police rang my doorbell, I was standing in my kitchen making coffee with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. Not from fear, mind you, from something else entirely. Something that had been building inside me for 2 long years, ever since my daughter Rebecca married that man. That horrible, cruel man named Jacob. Let me take you back to the beginning, because revenge is a dish best served cold. And mine had been chilling in the freezer of my broken heart for far too long. Rebecca was my only child. Her father died when she was just 7 years old. A heart attack that came out of nowhere and left us alone in a world that suddenly felt too big and too dark. I worked 2 jobs to put her through college. I went without new clothes, without vacations, without so much as a decent meal most nights so she could have everything she needed. I'm not saying this to sound like a martyr. I did it with love. Every sacrifice was made with a smile because she was my world, my purpose, my reason for breathing. She met Jacob at her office 5 years ago. At first he seemed charming enough. Handsome, well-dressed, always saying the right things. But I saw something in his eyes that first dinner we had together. Something cold and calculating. A mother's intuition, perhaps. I tried to warn Rebecca gently, but she was in love, and love makes us all blind sometimes. They married 3 years ago, and that's when everything changed. Slowly at first. Jacob would make little comments about my age, about how I was slowing down or getting forgetful. Rebecca would laugh nervously, not quite defending me but not quite agreeing with him either. Then came the suggestions that maybe I shouldn't live alone anymore. That maybe I should sell my house. The house my husband and I had bought together 40 years ago. And move in with them. I refused at first. I valued my independence. But Jacob was persistent, and Rebecca started echoing his concerns. We just worry about you, Mom, she'd say, her eyes not quite meeting mine. So 6 months ago I relented. I sold my beloved home and moved into their spare bedroom. The room that used to be an office. The room where Jacob begrudgingly removed his golf clubs and computer to make space for my life. That's when the real nightmare began. The comments became crueler. Mary, you left the stove on again. Are you trying to burn the house down? When I hadn't been near the stove. Did you take your pills? You're getting confused again when I was sharper than I'd ever been. He was gaslighting me and I knew it. But what broke my heart into a million pieces was watching my daughter transform before my eyes. Rebecca, my sweet girl who used to hold my hand and tell me I was her hero, started to change. She stopped defending me. Then she stopped looking at me with warmth. Then she started joining in. Small jabs at first. Mom, maybe you should write things down. Your memory isn't what it used to be. Or Jacob's right, you do seem confused lately. I realized what was happening. Jacob was poisoning her against me, and she was drinking it down like sweet wine. Why? Money, I eventually understood. My house had sold for a considerable sum, and most of it was sitting in my bank account. They wanted me declared incompetent. They wanted control of my finances. They wanted me in a home somewhere out of sight and out of mind, while they lived off my life savings. The incident that changed everything happened on a Thursday evening. I remember it was Thursday because that was the day I usually made pot roast, my daughter's favorite since she was a little girl. I'd spent the afternoon preparing it, my arthritic hands working slowly but carefully through each step. The table was set beautifully. I'd even used my good china, the set that had belonged to my mother. We sat down to eat and for a moment I had hope. Maybe tonight would be different. Maybe tonight we could be a family again. I served the roast, watching Rebecca's face for any sign of the little girl who used to dance around the kitchen while I cooked. That's when Jacob struck. He took one bite, made a face of exaggerated disgust, and spat it back onto his plate. This is inedible, he announced. Mary, you've completely lost it. You can't even cook anymore. The roast was perfect. I tasted it myself. But before I could say anything, he stood up, grabbed the corner of the tablecloth and yanked. Hard. Everything crashed to the floor. My mother's china shattered into 1,000 pieces. Gravy splattered across the walls. The roast landed on the carpet with a sickening thud. "Enough of this old useless garbage," he yelled, his face red and contorted with rage. But he wasn't looking at the food or the broken dishes. He was looking at me. I sat frozen, my heart hammering in my chest, waiting for Rebecca to say something, waiting for my daughter to defend me, to tell him he'd gone too far, to remember who I was and what I'd done for her. Instead, she smiled. Not a nervous smile or an uncomfortable smile. A genuine smile of satisfaction, as if she'd been waiting for this moment. As if watching her mother be humiliated and degraded brought her some twisted pleasure. I said nothing. What could I say? My voice had been stolen by heartbreak so profound I thought I might die right there at that ruined table. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking, and walked to my room. I closed the door, sat on my bed, and stared at the wall until the sun went down and the house fell silent. But here's what they didn't know. Here's what Jacob's cruelty and Rebecca's betrayal didn't account for. I wasn't some helpless old woman losing her grip on reality. I was a retired paralegal who had worked in family law for 35 years. I knew exactly what they were trying to do, and I knew exactly how to stop them. That night, while they slept, I started making calls. Quiet calls. Careful calls. I contacted an old colleague who owed me a favor. I arranged for a full medical evaluation to prove my mental competency. I documented everything. Every insult, every instance of gaslighting, every piece of my mother's china that Jacob had destroyed. I'd been keeping a journal, you see. Dated entries. Times. Exact quotes. Everything. Then I made one more call. This one to the police non-emergency line. I reported that I felt unsafe in my home. That I was being financially abused and emotionally manipulated by family members. That I needed help. The next morning, while they were still sleeping, the police rang the bell. I answered it, of course. I was already dressed and waiting. I'd packed a small bag the night before. The officer was young, probably around Rebecca's age, with kind eyes. "Mrs. Henderson? Mary Henderson?" he asked. "Yes, officer. Please come in. And try to be quiet. I don't want to wake them yet." What followed was like watching a perfectly choreographed play. The officer listened to my statement. He looked at my documentation. He examined the dining room, where Jacob hadn't even bothered to fully clean up the mess from the night before. Broken china still glittered on the carpet like sad little diamonds. Another officer arrived, this one older and female. She sat with me in the kitchen while the first officer went upstairs to wake Jacob and Rebecca. I could hear the confusion in their voices, the panic starting to set in. They came downstairs in their pajamas, Jacob's face already turning that particular shade of red I'd come to know so well. "What the hell is this?" he demanded. "Officers, my mother-in-law is confused. She's been having episodes. We've been trying to get her help." "Mr. Whitmore," the female officer interrupted calmly, "Mrs. Henderson has made some serious allegations regarding financial abuse and elder exploitation. We need to ask you both some questions." Rebecca's face went white. "Mom, what did you do?" "What did I do?" "I protected myself. That's what I did." But I didn't say that. Instead, I just looked at her. Really looked at her, trying to find any trace of the daughter I'd raised. I saw nothing but a stranger wearing my daughter's face. The investigation that followed was thorough. Turns out, when an elderly person reports abuse and has meticulous documentation to back it up, the authorities take it seriously. Very seriously. They examined my medical records and found me completely competent. They interviewed neighbors who had heard Jacob's raging through the walls. They subpoenaed bank records that showed Rebecca had been trying to get added to my accounts without my knowledge. But here's where my revenge became truly sweet. Remember, I worked in family law. I knew that what they'd done, the pattern of behavior they'd established, could be classified as elder abuse under state law. I knew that financial exploitation was a crime. And I knew exactly which lawyers to call. I moved out that very day, police escort and all. I went to stay with my sister Margaret, who lived 2 states away and who I should have listened to from the beginning when she said Jacob gave her the creeps. From Margaret's guest room, I orchestrated everything. I pressed charges, both criminal and civil. I filed for a restraining order. I cut Rebecca out of my will entirely and left everything to charity. Every penny. The house money, my savings, my pension, everything. I made sure she knew it too. I had my lawyer send her a letter outlining exactly what her betrayal had cost her. But the real revenge, the kind that money can't buy, came in the form of social consequences. You see, Rebecca worked in a small, tight-knit industry where reputation was everything. Word spread quickly about the elder abuse investigation. Her colleagues started to distance themselves. Clients requested different account managers. Jacob's family, who had never particularly liked Rebecca anyway, turned on them both. Rebecca called me once about 3 months into the legal proceedings. She was crying. "Mom, please. We didn't mean it. Jacob has anger issues and I just went along because I was scared. Please drop the charges. This is destroying our lives." I listened to her sob, and I felt something crack inside my chest. For a moment I almost wavered. She was still my daughter after all. The little girl I'd rocked to sleep, whose nightmares I'd chased away, whose tears I'd dried 1,000 times. But then I remembered her smile. That smile while her husband called me garbage. That smile that told me she'd stopped loving me long before that night. Maybe she'd never loved me the way I loved her. Maybe I'd been a means to an end all along. "Rebecca," I said quietly, "when you smiled while he called me garbage, you made a choice. Now you have to live with the consequences of that choice. Just like I have to live with the consequence of raising someone who could do that to their own mother." I hung up. She didn't call again. The criminal charges resulted in plea deals for both of them. Jacob got probation and mandatory anger management. Rebecca got community service and a mark on her record that would follow her forever. The civil suit was settled out of court. They paid me a significant sum for emotional damages, though no amount of money could repair what they'd broken. But here's the thing about revenge that nobody tells you. It doesn't make you feel better. It doesn't heal the wound. It just means the other person hurts too. As I sat in Margaret's guest room the day the settlement came through, I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty, hollowed out. I won, but what had I really won? The right to say I destroyed my daughter's life as thoroughly as she tried to destroy mine? People ask me if I regret it, if I wish I'd handled it differently. The answer is complicated. I don't regret protecting myself. I don't regret refusing to be a victim. But I regret that it came to that in the first place. I regret that the child I'd given everything for could become someone capable of such cruelty. It's been 14 months since that morning when the police rang the bell. I eventually moved into a lovely senior living community, not because I need assistance, but because I wanted the company of people my own age. People with grandchildren who visit them with genuine smiles. People with children who call just to say hello. I've made new friends. I've taken up painting. I go to book club on Tuesdays and water aerobics on Thursdays. My life is peaceful now, quiet in a way it hasn't been in years. But there's a Rebecca-shaped hole in it that nothing will ever fill. Sometimes late at night I wonder what she's doing. If she thinks about me. If she regrets what she did or if she's just angry that she got caught. I wonder if Jacob still has those anger issues or if losing everything taught him something. Mostly, I wonder if there was a moment, a single moment, where I could have done something differently that would have changed the outcome. But then I remember. I remember her smile. And I know that by the time that night came, it was already too late. She'd already made her choice, and so had I. Mine was to survive. To refuse to be discarded like garbage. To prove that being old doesn't mean being powerless. So that's my story. The story of how my own daughter betrayed me. And how I refused to let that betrayal destroy me. It's not a happy story, and the revenge I got didn't bring me the satisfaction you might think. But it brought me something else: my dignity, my autonomy, and my freedom. If you've experienced something similar, if you've been betrayed by someone you loved, please know that you're not alone. And you're not powerless, no matter what anyone tells you. You have rights. You have worth. And you deserve to be treated with respect, no matter your age. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more real stories about real people facing real challenges. And please, tell me in the comments where you're listening from, and if you've ever had to make a difficult choice between family and self-preservation. I read every comment, and your stories give me strength. Thank you for listening to An Old Woman's Tale. May you never have to choose between love and survival. But if you do, may you choose yourself. Every single time. Until next time, take care of yourselves and call your mothers. The good ones anyway.